Welcome back, everyone, for a glimpse of what is next for teams who will not be heading to the postseason this weekend. Let's start off with District 2-5A, George, and obviously you have to wonder what this means for Coronado and Lubbock as they start making moves toward next season. Let's start with Coronado.
Absolutely. With Coronado, I know it was a disappointing season that, they were maybe one of the most talented teams, in 2-5A. I thought they just weren't able to put everything together for consistent 10 games. They were able to do it in spurts and against certain teams, but just not against, teams, the whole season long. So, I think Coronado's going to have some good players coming back. Both their running backs, Trey Scott, Banner Owen will be back. But the thing is with Coronado, and as many seniors as they play and as many seniors that are on that roster every year, it's pretty much a complete wipeout. So you're going to have to see who steps up in the offseason on the offensive and defensive line, and then they're going to have somebody step up defensively. I mean, when you go back and look at how good Coronado was, a few years ago with the Austin Zuzalik team and those guys, Shaney Wilkinson, it was really their defense that made a difference. They were able to put up yards and points, and they've been able to do that all year and ever since. It's just they've got to find some people on defense to step up. And I think hopefully they can find some in that offseason that can step up and give them a solid defense and allow that offense to do more damage on the field when it gets on there.
You have to wonder if Butch Henderson's going to find some of those younger underclassmen that will be able to step up and maybe start learning the system a little bit early and not have to put in those seniors so far ahead of time. Another team trying to find something going, something moving in the last season. And really, when you look back at Lubbock High this year, a team that maybe played better than anyone else toward the end of the season, maybe Mike Speck found something to move into this next year for the Westerners.
The unfortunate thing that happened for Lubbock High this year, in years past they've had one or two guys, really standout guys, offensively or skill position wise that they could really go to, whether it was a receiver or a quarterback or whatever. Well, they had a couple of guys, but they weren't at that level, and they just didn't have anybody, at the talent level that they've had the last couple of years. Now they had great effort, they had great attitude all year long, and Coach Speck praised that all year. Now, if they'd had that attitude with some of the other talented teams, they might have had some breakthrough. Now, what they've got to do is they've got to go find some sophomores, some juniors in their JV ranks and their freshman ranks that are going to step up and be those kind of players. And with the way Lubbock High is, and they having to share feeder schools with Monterey, you just got to kind of wait and see who comes up through the ranks and who's going to step up. So, if Lubbock High can keep that kind of attitude and find about 2 or 3 playmakers, in this off season, then I think things may shape up for pretty good for them next year.
Going into 4A now, and of course we're so accustomed to Friendship being one of those big teams in the playoffs every single season. We've almost been spoiled with some of the teams that Davis has had, and I'm sure he feels the same way with the players and talent that he's had. We think of guys like Ratliff and those players that have come through and made such a big deal there. It's kind of one of those, is it a rebuilding year, or is it trying to find that talented class that's going to come up in the next couple of years?
Well, I think it's probably the latter. I mean, because I talked with Brad Davis at the beginning of the year. I mean, he thought he had the talent this year to be able to overcome that, but they just couldn't, get to that level. They didn't have a consistent passing game to take the pressure off the running game. We mentioned Bobby Huey, injured all year. He just didn't have the explosiveness he showed as a sophomore. If he can come back healthy and get back to that level he showed as a sophomore, then that's going to be a big step. But they've got to get some guys up front, and I think they've got to get a little bit of attitude. I think maybe there might have been a little bit of, we're Friendship, we'll just roll the ball out and you will lay over and we'll beat you. And they found out in this district with Randall, with an upsurge in Caprock, with Kenyon, with all those guys, that district is not going to be that way. They're going to have to come out and they're going to have some attitude. And I know Brad Davis is very disappointed. I talked with Don Black, the defensive coordinator, a couple weeks ago. He said it was a weird deal, knowing when your last workout is, because it's been 20 years or so since they've known when their last workout is going to be. So I'm sure that Coach Davis is already sitting there working toward the off season, trying to devise some plans, maybe do some things some different ways, and we'll see. I would expect it to be a very interesting off season out there at Friendship High School.
Those teams look forward to next season. When we come back, George will give you his picks for the opening week of the 2010 playoffs. Don't go anywhere.